majamaa niliwakataza. Niliwaambia wachaneni na hii mambo ya kubadilisha katiba. Wakubali kwanza tubadilishe uchumi na tuhakikisha kwamba kuna chakula ya kutosha. Lakini hawakusikia. Walituambia ati nobody can stop reggae. Kama hatungewachana na mpango ya Big Four, kama tungefuatilia ile mambo ya kilimo, ile mambo ya food security, ile kupunguza gharama ya mbolea kupitia subsidy ya fertilizer, leo hatungekuwa na njaa katika taifa letu la Kenya.
My friend, baada ya kutenga Ruto, what has happened to the economy? Madeni yamezidi. Ushuru umezidi. Unga ndio hiyo bei ni mbaya. And for the first time in Kenya's history, the price of flour, bei ya unga, imezidi bei ya sukari.
Tunajua Azimio walihusika pakubwa kuzima uchumi wa pwani. Uchumi wa pwani unategemea bandari ya Mombasa. Ni kweli si kweli? Kama bandari ya Mombasa haifanyi kazi, hata EPZ haiwezi kufanya kazi.
Hapa Mtwapa, mnajua hapa ni bedroom ya Mombasa. Hii bandari yetu ya Mombasa, serikali ya handshake imeihamisha, imeipeleka kwingine. Sasa ajira ni shida, kwa sababu wafanyikazi wa bandari ndio wanaguza uchumi wa hata hapa Mtwapa.
All right, those are the leaders of Kenya Kwanza speaking yesterday at the coast. And of course, what they are talking about is a matter that has become a thorn in the flesh of many. Of course, you're talking about the cost of living. And for instance, the price of unga hitting 200 shillings. I don't think this has ever happened in the history of unga in Kenya. And of course, I'm looking at what happened at a time like this in 2017. That was in May 2017, actually May 16th. That's when the government subsidized the price of unga that was now going to cost 90 shillings, and a kilogram of maize flour would also drop to 47 shillings. So that was an intervention of the government, and there's a time not long before then that price of unga had been at 75 shillings. Let me start with the basics. Fred, what do you think is causing these price hikes?
Thank you, Sam. Before I answer that, I'm looking at the people who are now using this as a campaign tool. William Ruto is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, who was elected together with President Kenyatta and did promise to lower the cost of living. To date, he is still the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, and therefore he has a duty, a constitutional duty, to ensure that as the price of unga goes up today, as the price of energy goes up today, the cost of energy goes up today, he has a duty to work in his government to secure lives of Kenya to that extent. He has not done that. Number two, I'm looking at Mudavadi and Wetangula. These are also choir masters who, for a very long time, pretended to be supporting the president to cushion the lives of Kenyans because they were in every meeting at State House. They were in every meeting in Mombasa. Today, they have joined William Ruto to castigate the same government for the challenges that they have shared. Now, it is common knowledge that the price of unga has gone up. It is common knowledge that the cost of energy is up. And we do recognize that as Azimio. In fact, in our agenda, one of the issues that Raila Odinga and the team are looking at and focusing at immensely is to reduce the cost of living with a special focus on the cost of unga, fuel, and mobile data. But you have asked a question.
That's the promise.
No, it's not a promise, it's a commitment.
Okay, fine. If you want to rephrase it, it's fine. But what I'm asking is, why is price of unga now over 200 shillings? Just hold on. Because September 2018, it had been lowered to 75 shillings. In May 2017, a subsidy that made it to cost 75 shillings per 2 kg. I mean, 90 shillings per 2 kg. It's now over 200. What is causing this?
My answer would be very simple, Sam. The economic terms are very hard. We have seen the effects of COVID. We have seen the effects of, the war outside the global, the Ukraine war that affecting the energy sector and the rest. And we have also seen, the effects of drought before that also affected the production of maize and the rest in our country. But most importantly is the issue on the management from the government side. And I've just outlined to you who is in government. The people that are in government today are William Ruto and President Kenyatta. And they have those challenges. They have asked for support from Kenyans and other leaders. That support, unfortunately, has not come in time when Kenyans need it. So for me, just let me answer you.
What support will make the price of unga to go down? The
support that will make the price of unga to go down is to ensure that we have got economic stimulus that is given to the people of Kenya, as the government of President Kenyatta promised. That support probably has not come in because Kenyans are putting money into their farms, and that money is not translating.
Well,
the issue of locust came.
So that you also factor. So you're saying there's a stimulus proposal by the government that has not been supported by
some.
Ruto and
when
team?
The president told Kenyans that because of the effects of COVID, there is a stimulus package that should go to the people so that they cushion their lives. It was temporary, but you cannot use it post that because the issues were affecting the lives then. What I'm saying is...
So what support are they lacking?
The support that Kenyans are lacking today, they're lacking the support of government. That government is not a one-man government. It's a government that was elected on a ticket. One person in the ticket has decided to use the challenges that their government are experiencing as a campaign tool. Then the other person, in the name of President Kenyatta, has decided that he's going to do his best through other people to ensure that as he exits, Kenyans put in place a leadership that recognizes that actually we can fix this when it comes. Okay. Now, let me just answer you. Finally, when we start asking why is the cost of unga high today, we all agree it is high. It is high for you, for me, and for them. But the issue we must look at the issues, the challenges in the Jubilee government for the last 9 years also. Those challenges, how did they start? They started from the issues to do with mismanagement
allow
of
me
funds.
to cut you short, because you're talking about the regime of Jubilee, and I've just told you September 2018, the price of unga was 75 shillings per packet of 2 kg.
Yes.
Today it's over 200 shillings.
Yes.
Caleb Kositany, what is your take on this? What is contributing this?
Well, Sam, I think the biggest contributor to the food prices, or rather the rising cost of food prices, shockingly, even salt, which I've never seen the price of salt even mentioned in the budget as rising, has risen because of poor economic policy. I think those in charge, and we don't need to beat about the bush. President Uhuru Kenyatta has not been focused on issues affecting Kenyans. He has been focused on his succession. He has been focused on selling his project, the ODM presidential candidate Raila Odinga, and he has lost track on issues that a president should actually focus on. I'm sure it is all out there, Sam, that we know that our cabinet last met just the other day, and I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, about a month ago, the cabinet met. But prior to that, they had not met for almost 2 years. And
there is a session chaired by the president and attended by
the session chaired by the president and attended by the deputy president. And that is where government policy is discussed. That is where you go and discuss how the state of the economy of the nation and decide how to run affairs. Instead, that has been delegated to the Minister of Internal Security, who I think is the most reckless internal security minister we've had in terms of comments, in terms of policy. I think he's drunk with power.
What has he said that is reckless?
One, you remember the sugar issue, when somebody says we have contaminated sugar in Kenya. It was a comment that came from Matiang'i, and he has never been taken to task. The own investigation proved that that was negative, but it has never been, he has never been taken to task to improve that, explain that. The biggest issue why the cost of fuel is, cost of food is going high is because nobody thinks about the common man. These people who are there, and I like what our deputy President-designate Rigathi Gachagua said, it is because of state capture. People are looking at how can these mega companies that we own make money. What are we going to do with the banking industry? Let us merge our banks.
So how does that directly relate to UNGA?
It relates directly like this, Sam. If the president was concerned about the common wananchi, he would have convened a cabinet meeting. Let us discuss where can we make savings in order to subsidize the cost of UNGA like we did in September 2017. You remember UNGA was at 90 shillings, it was brought down to 75 shillings. And it stayed there for a while because government sat down and they decided, and that time, unlike now, William Ruto was in government. Nyakago here is saying, oh, William Ruto is in government. William Ruto is in government just by paper. But in terms of policy discussions and the think tank that is advising the president has publicly told us that right now his biggest advisor and the person who is helping him is Raila Odinga. And ODM and Jubilee and all these characters should not tell us, give us promises that they are going to bring down the cost of food when they take over government. They are in government now.
Are you telling me?
They should bring down the cost of food now. They have the time.
I understand the situation, the political situation in the country and in government, but are you telling me that the deputy president's hands are fully tied? There's nothing he can do, whether it's now or the past few months, to really change the conversation?
Absolutely. The president doesn't take advice from his deputy president anymore. He takes advice from Raila Odinga. That is a fact. And those are and the president himself said...
Would you know if he has tried?
He hasn't. He hasn't. I would know. He hasn't. And he said it himself. That who you knew
would you know if the deputy president has tried to speak?
Let me ask you, Sam, if you are in a vehicle and the driver is overspeeding and you tell him to slow down and he doesn't slow down, what can you do? Do you hold the steering wheel?
You see, Caleb Kositanyi, Kenyans have a right to expect services from the leaders they have elected. So I'm asking a specific question. Unfortunately, you're not the deputy president, but would you know if he has tried to advise his boss on the issues that are hurting Kenyans now?
I wouldn't know if he has tried to advise the president. But what I know is that the president has no time for the deputy. He has more time for Raila Odinga. And he has said it publicly. The president has said it publicly, Sam, that my advisor now and the person who is helping me, and I would say who is helping him ruin the economy, who is helping him not be sensitive to the plight of Kenyans, is Raila Odinga.
Okay. Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, you're an elected legislator, member of parliament for Migori County. When you face your constituents, what do you tell them at a time that they now have to buy a packet of unga for ugali, probably at a higher price than wheat flour at some stores? What do you tell them?
Sam, it is very sad when I listen to my colleagues talk, especially Caleb Kositanyi, who is also a fellow legislator with me, as if the only issue we must just talk about Raila and we must just talk about Uhuru and Ruto and think, forget about the facts on file. I want to pick it from your point where you are saying in 2018, unga was 75 shillings. But I think the episodes that have taken place between then and now are actually partly to blame for the food shortage and more so the unga that we are talking about. I am aware that between 2019 to 2020, 2021, I will use the example of the region where I come from. I've seen at some stage heavy rains that destroyed all whatever anybody planted, followed by very sharp sprouts of sunshine that also dries up everything. And this has been a problem within the country in various parts. Even Kositanyi, he knows the Rift Valley, which has been our other basket of producing maize, has suffered these issues owing to the climatic environmental changes that we are experiencing. And that's why we as in Azimio, we are thinking, and I believe, that creating means of ensuring that when there is sun, we can irrigate our farms. Very intensive irrigation plans and schemes for both all sorts of crops that we can produce is very important. That infrastructure is very important in this country. And the cost, the issue of the COVID, I think when COVID struck, every sort of production, including revenue collection, went down everywhere, not only in Kenya. And I think Caleb Kositany acknowledges that. We kept talking about it in Parliament for the few sittings that we had. And coming to the Ukraine thing, you know, this fact that we have to rely heavily on imported energy, the petroleum. The moment the petroleum goes up, there is very little you can do about the prices of other things. I think as a legislator, I remember, led by the finance department under Gladys Wanga, at some stage we tried to reduce even taxations and zero rate some of these proposed zero rating of these basic commodities. And I remember at that time, the likes of Kositany and Ichung'wah, when they had jumped out of the Uhuru boat, were even opposing that. And I'm shocked that he is talking of Deputy President advising Uhuru Kenyatta. And he must remember, advice is different from an abuse and insult. I think at the onset, whatever Kositany wants to believe or tell us here that President Uhuru Kenyatta has rejected the advice, I also can't confirm. What we have heard our president speak in public is a spree of insults at his own president. And he is saying that even 2017, Ruto was in government.
But Dr.
Even
Pamela,
as we sit here today at 2022, Ruto is still in government.
Dr.
So,
Pamela, just a
I'm
moment.
saying this. It is difficult. Just listen to me, Sam. We are all suffering. The so-called common man are suffering. And that's why we are saying we need a leadership that can at one moment acknowledge that, yes, there is a problem. But this keeping shifting blame games on one another is not going to help neither those who think they are not common and those who think they are common.
And
so
still,
my take is,
Dr.
we
Pamela,
are all paying, and that's why we are saying
whatever
promises, whatever commitments the new government is going to make onward must be seriously taken and be implemented to the letter with an aim of increasing productivity in every sector, especially agriculture. We need to make every household produce enough food. As at now, I really don't know what to do, because even all those candidates, they are using money on campaign and not using it to buy hunger for the so-called hungry people. So I think with all due honesty,
I hear you,
we
and still
to be serious people and talk about the objectives and not the subjectives.
Okay, I hear you, Dr. Pamela, but still that doesn't answer my question. I had asked you what you tell your constituents about what is going on as a representative of the people.
I tell my constituents that the difficult time is here with us and we have to struggle, but I'm hoping that we are going to have a government that can look into this thing. And my solution is that elaborate infrastructure for agricultural production to make sure that our people have food and cheap food that we can produce ourselves.
Okay.
Sorry if I didn't answer you before, but
all right.
that is what the thought like.
That would appear as part of the long-term solution. But for you, Caleb, because you come from Uasin Gishu, which is a pretty respected country in terms of food productivity or production. But so, fine. Whatever happens on August 9th happens. What is that solution that we must get right this time to be in a position to contain some of these prices? Because you're being told of Ukraine, you're being told of petroleum prices, never mind that the rate of increment of the cost of fuel is not proportionate to the increase in the rate of the prices of food. What is that solution that we must be looking for?
One thing that we must implement when we take over as Kenya Kwanza and the UDA family is first guaranteed minimum returns, the GMR, for our farmers. Two, we have to ensure that we have a proper plan on subsidy. The subsidy plan that was put in place by President Kibaki and Deputy President William Ruto, who was Minister for Agriculture then, boosted our food production by maybe about 30% at that time. But then with this Jubilee administration and the handshake government, the subsidy just went off. Fertilizer now, Sam, is ranging between 5,400 to 6,500.
I thought CS
Munya just talks. There's the subsidized fertilizer for Munya. I don't know of any farmer, me included, who has benefited from the fertilizer that Munya spoke about. I went to cereals board. I kept calling the manager. I sent my farm manager to go to cereals board in Ziwa, which is the nearest cereals board to my farm. And I was number 900 and something. And not a single farmer had collected even half a kilo of fertilizer. So it was just stocked by the CS. There has been no subsidized fertilizer. The issue also that is actually surprising, and that is why I blame the administration of President Uhuru, is because when the attention, Sam, that was given to BBI, the attention that was given to passing the political amendment bills in Parliament, if that attention had been given to cushioning farmers, if that attention had been given to discussing issues of inflation so that we may maintain the cost of food at a reasonable price for Kenyans, we would be talking about something differently now. But we are so focused on things that benefit the few, and we forget to focus on the things that benefit the many. And that is why we have said in the Kenya Kwanza coalition that ours is the bottom-up economic approach, whereby we will run the economy from the bottom, going up, and that is where we want to go. The other thing that needs to be done, Sam, we have a cartel that is controlling the fertilizer industry in this country. We have a cartel that is controlling the chemical industry. There are very new methods of farming, very advanced methods of farming. There are new chemicals which could be cheaper and more efficient. But to get them licensed into the Kenyan market is becoming a problem, because it's the who's who are doing business in these industries. Those are the roadblocks that we would want to remove, and I want to assure Kenyans
that has not been possible for you in this term.
It has not been possible. It has not been possible. The cartel is lethal. The cartel is lethal. You bring your brother and say, okay, fine, we are going to test, we shall get back to you.
No, I'm talking even the other measures that you're proposing, whether it's providing a subsidy. It has not been possible for...
To provide subsidy, is a process. You require cabinet to sit. You require them to...
It cannot be introduced from Parliament?
It cannot be introduced from Parliament, Sam, because it needs to come in from government. Even we struggled within Parliament. We were putting in money into the Ministry of Agriculture, about 4 billion shillings for subsidy, but it was knocked off and put into other projects. So I think what is catching up with the current system now is the neglect, the way they neglected the most important industry, which is farming. They neglected the most important commodity, which is food, and they are trying to play catch up and take us on merry-go-round sprees on how they will introduce or rather bring down the food prices when they take over government.
Okay.
For the avoidance of doubt, Raila is in government. He is in constant communication with President Uhuru. Let them stop these so-called Azimio meetings. I'm told they are meeting again tomorrow. Let them sit, cancel those meetings and sit and discuss the food prices and come up with a way of cushioning Kenyans.
How about the Deputy President?
He's not. If he's invited, he will attend. If he's invited, he will attend. You know, State House is not a place whereby you just walk in, walk out. If the Deputy President, he will attend, and I'm sure he will give very positive and very tangible
Fred, since you're not elected, just like me, I mean, what do you want these elected leaders, well, unfortunately, they're not running in this election, but what do you want elected leaders to do in the next Parliament?
We have talked about these hard economic times before, and we acknowledge, all of us, in elected, not elected, and ordinary Kenyans, that life is difficult. But the most important thing is, do we complain or do we do something? For us in Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, we are doing something. I'm happy that Mheshimiwa Caleb Kostanyi is talking about guaranteed minimum returns. If you look at Azimio agenda, and specifically under what we are going to do in 100 days. In economic revolution, on agriculture specifically, we're also talking about the same. And I don't want to believe that they're doing it differently. I want to believe that it is for the benefit of Kenyans. Number two, what the elected leaders must do when elected, whether you are an MCA or the president, you must focus on reviving this economy, because we are coming from the ravages of COVID, the issues of fuel, the issues of drought and the rest. We must revive this economy to ensure that Kenyans can put food on the table. We must lower the cost of energy to ensure that the factors of production are low and the cost of production is also low. But you see, that is not possible at once. The elected leaders, particularly in the National Assembly, must look at issues of policy and legislation that are going to make access to farm inputs easy. For example, we're talking about fertilizer and seeds. They must do that. Number three, we must also look at the issues of environment and climate, because those are issues that affect naturally how we produce food in this country if they're not considered. So for me, I am confident in Azimio la Umoja because they have put an agenda on the table, an agenda to revive economy, an agenda for social transformation, an agenda for good governance. All those things, when we form government come 9th August, we shall commit to do exactly that. I am happy that Kenya Kwanza will be launching their manifesto probably later this month. We would want to see as Kenyans now, what else are they offering that maybe as we are not offering? And we shall compete on the basis of that idea. But as it is today, we strongly believe that we have the agenda. This election is about economy. And that's why if you look at our areas of reviving this economy, agriculture, environment, livestock, blue economy, energy, those are issues that are touching at the heart of common man. The moment you lower the cost of fuel, the moment you lower the cost of production, the moment you can make money available in Mama Mboga, what they're talking about.
How do you propose to lower the cost of fuel?
Because, number one, you see what I'm saying, without putting into detail, is we must have fiscal policies that make it easy to implement some of these proposals. And also we must have a legal and policy framework by the elected leaders so that we can have these accessible. Today, as we speak, there's so many things that are happening and Kenyans are blaming the leaders. Kositanyi included, because he is elected currently. So when he goes to his constituency, people are asking him, instead of telling us about bottom up, bring us unga. But he is not able to do that. Why? Because he is not possible.
Fred, I'm asking a specific question because we were told that the government will be lifting the subsidy on petroleum products starting this month, I mean the new month of July.
Yes.
That means the price of a litre of petrol could go up way up to probably 180, 190 shillings.
Unfortunate.
But what is the specific proposal to lower this? That's what I'm asking.
I think that question, maybe we should ask Caleb Kositanyi because he is in government today. For us who are outside...
You're the one who has told me that Azimio government is going to reduce it.
I am saying, for you to go forward, as proposed by Azimio government, we're going to look at the issues that affect factors of production. One of them is energy. So for you to have cheap energy, we must go renewable fully and look at what can be done to access that energy. Number two, we're also saying we need to look at livestock and agriculture in general. Access to farm inputs in a lower cost.
No, Fred, you're confusing me. Look, I'm reading a statement from the National Treasury. Without the fuel subsidy, fuel prices would have retailed at 184 shillings 68 cents for a litre of petrol. For diesel, it could have been 188 shillings 19 cents. Kerosene would have been 170 shillings 37 cents. Do you have an answer on how to reduce this?
First of all...
No, yes or no?
Yes, we have. One of them is roadmap towards stable petroleum prices. That's one of it. Number two, if I just refer here, we must have a roadmap towards reducing the cost of petroleum by locally looking at what is available. When we import, looking at what is available. Because you see, this subsidy issue is a big concern, not only to the government, but also to the people. When you remove it and it goes up, are we looking at the global markets? What is happening? You know, people are saying that life is difficult, yes. But if you go to UK today, if you look at the trends there, they're also talking about the same issue we're talking about here. So it is a global issue. So what is our foreign policy? What is our local policy that are in tandem with all these things that can lower the cost of living? And the cost of living is not only about energy, Sam. It is intertwined with all other things. So we must look at it systemically, not systematically, as we think.
Okay. Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, do you have any specific proposals? Because the panel here has blamed everything. And that is Ukraine, petroleum prices, state capture, conflict of interest, and everything has been blamed. But do you have specific proposals and specifically how to deal with the skyrocketing price of fuel? Dr. Pamela?
I think much of what I could propose on the skyrocketing prices of fuel has been well explained by my friend Richard there. We need to look for other alternative, cheaper sources of energy that can make our lives work locally and elsewhere. But when something becomes a global issue and we insist on the importation, sometimes those markets are controlled by the owners of those products. Having said that, in the case of food, Sam, if we have to be realistic and very honest as Kenyans, how many of us are actually involved in the food production industry, especially our energetic youths? And this is what I think as leaders, if you were to ask me for practical solutions, most of the time, including Kositany and all of us, especially the political leaders, we like engaging these youths in rallies. Very few of us are even attempting to show the youth that we need to go back to the land. And I think it has been clear in the Azimio manifesto, making the youth productive. And this does not mean that we only have to employ them in offices. We can employ them in the farms. As a women rep of Migori County, it is on record that one of my first projects was to roll out a series of greenhouses that made me engage young people with horticultural skills from the universities. And I think when we are talking about some of these things, I believe there are things that can actually we peg on the energy that we depends on the petroleum that we import from outside. But there are other issues like our population. If you were to look at the segments, how many of our youth are keen to make sure that there is even some just one leaf of Sukuma Wiki growing next to their house? And these are some of the things that I'm calling upon Kenyans. Let us come back to earth. Sometimes we have been flying too high until we are not able to patch. And I think this is an issue that every leader that is going to be elected in this election and every technocrat who is going to be engaged in those ministries, we must come up with simple, practical, local solutions for our problems.
All right. Well spoken, but still, I don't have answers. Caleb, I'll ask you this, because you're just about to unveil your manifesto. And I mean, your leaders and yourselves have said so much about what the problem is and said why things are the way they are because of the missed opportunities that there were. Very flowery manifestos that you're finding, but do you have, again, the same question, do you have specific proposals on how to fix the global impact on the Kenyan economy?
I think we have very specific, very realistic, achievable proposals. And I think that question is best held until Thursday night, once we have unveiled our manifesto sum, so that we don't jump the gun. I think our manifesto is going to be very comprehensive. We will not be...
No doubt. They are all comprehensive, but let's be specific, just for this one.
Yes, I'm answering you and telling you that if you just hold on until Thursday evening, then you will have all your answers. So let me not give you half-baked answers, because our manifesto, as we even speak, is still being fine-tuned. So it is, we have collected views from all Kenyans. We know exactly what needs to be done. We are of a team an experienced team in the Deputy President who has been in government for a while. He has risen from being an assistant minister up to Deputy President. We have a running mate who has worked in government for 15 years, quite experienced, having worked in the provincial administration. We have a team of economists. You have seen us engage the people right at the bottom of the pyramid. We have engaged the business community. We have engaged the education fraternity, and we're coming up with a package, some that will satisfy Kenyans and is achievable. And we are not going to be running up and down the way ODM are doing with theirs. You remember they gave a promise of employing 300,000 teachers, and then now they have said they are going to employ 114 without even giving timelines. We have said we are going to employ 116,000 teachers within. We'll break it down within 2 years, 2 financial years. And I think the most important thing is that we have the plan. Thursday, maybe you call me here on Friday morning, though I'll not be, I will be in Eldoret, and then we discuss our manifesto. Let's have the ODM manifesto on the table and the Kenya Kwanza manifesto on the table, and then we can discuss some.
You know, Caleb, we are not discussing the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, but you're right when you talk about the plan that you've spoken about, 116,000 at a cost of 25 billion shillings in a period of 2 years. So I wonder, you're able to talk about that, but you're not able to talk about what I'm asking you. The price of fuel is just about to go to 184 shillings. Of course, we don't have much of choice. We'll have to pay if you really need to move around, but we also have to scale down. But Kenya Kwanza government, what would be the policy proposals to contain this?
You see, the biggest problem is what builds to the price of fuel. It's taxation. I think government takes about, is it 50 or more than 50% is in taxes?
Close to 50.
Close to 50% is in taxes. That is something that would need to be reviewed. And we have just been reading the reports from the Auditor General of how much wastage and corruption there is in government. We have seen the Ministry of ICT, 12.5 billion cannot be accounted for. We have seen in the national government 70 billion shillings. Donor funds cannot be accounted for and were not even assigned to any project. You know, money has just disappeared in thin air. I think the most important thing is we need to make savings. We need to close those loopholes that are giving way to finances or funds going to the wrong hands. But the most important thing, and that is very fundamental, is we need to elect a government that listens to the people. We need to elect a government that knows why it is in government, that will focus not on the politics, but will focus on service delivery. I've even seen a comment by the Catholic bishops asking the government to lower the price of fuel. The amount of time, and I think the Deputy President has said this time again and again, and I like the way he keeps repeating it, is if we had not abandoned the Big Four agenda, which one of the key products of it was food production, enhancing food production. And to enhance food production, you just need to cushion the farmer, give him the products at a cheaper rate, subsidize the seeds, and ensure that Kenya Seed produces quality seeds, and that will enhance production. And I think we will, as we have said, we will get the Big Four agenda back on track. Unlike our competitors who are so focused on changing the constitution, we have said, and the Kenyans have said, we normally ask them tubadilishe uchumi kwanza ama tubadilishe katiba, and resoundingly they say uchumi kwanza. So that is where we are. Let us first work on the economy. We shall discuss the issues. But I'm happy. When we were discussing these issues, our presidential candidate, William Ruto, said we are going to change the conversation. It will no longer be about empty rhetoric, tialala, TB Mandol. We're going to have an economic discussion going forward. This election is going to be about who has the best economic policies. And I'm happy that now ODM have embraced that, that now they're talking about is giving 6,000 shillings. Actually, they're even discussing bottom-up, but in other words, they don't want to own up that they're also embracing the bottom-up economy. And that is what we need to discuss. And going forward, our politics is going to change. It's going to be, we want to be held responsible for the promises we make as Kenya Kwanza. And we are ready for that.
Okay, Caleb, what I've been doing, I've been calculating the percentage of taxes to the cost of fuel. It's 62.89 shillings, taxes and levies against the price of petrol, now 159 shillings. So that's about 38%. And I'm just wondering, even if you reduce these taxes to zero, the price would still be close to 100 shillings. And of course, the government needs revenue. So how do you balance that? That you need revenue from the taxes, but also need to cushion Kenyans. How do you balance that?
Well, first of all, I didn't say we're going to reduce to zero.
No, I'm saying just in case.
It definitely cannot be reduced to zero. And if it is, if you cannot touch on the taxes that are there on fuel, then you can also reduce on other government expenditure and wastage in other areas, and then continue with the subsidy program. Because I think when I see government saying they're going to pull out of the subsidy program, it's because they don't have a plan. It's because they don't think out, they don't sit and engage the best brains that we have on how to cushion these things. The way this government is operating, it's like everybody has been left to make decisions on their own, and you just say what you want to go out in the media so that you can postpone the problem. I think that is wrong. Those taxes are quite high. To have that 38% is government tax. It's actually quite high, and there are ways that need to be looked at into to reducing that. I think
what we all agree is that there's a problem and there's a solution that needs to be found.
Absolutely.
We still don't have the solution because the landed cost as of the statement from EPRA, that is June 14th, the landed cost of super petrol was 104 shillings. That is, before anything is done, 104 shillings. Then, of course, you introduce the other levies and charges. Distribution and storage was about 3 shillings 45 cents. There's something else here. The margins, zero margins for now because of the stabilization fund. So the stabilization fund was reducing by 11 shillings 27 cents, and then you have the taxes and levies at 62 shillings, giving a total of 159. And of course, the National Treasury later gave a statement saying that this is likely to be lifted come July, and this could see the price of super petrol go up to 184 shillings. So for you, Fred, because the last time I asked you a question about us who are not elected, you went back to your party. But not really, if you are to critically look at it, of course, we'll be looking at the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, the manifesto of Azimio la Umoja, but ultimately, what then is the responsibility of Kenyans to hold these leaders to account, knowing that there were promises in 2017, today there are reasons, excuses sometimes, and more promises?
I think it's true, Sam. Whichever political party you belong to, it doesn't cushion you much from the challenges of life like we're experiencing today. So I agree with you to that extent. But I think Kenyans have a duty to remind the elected leaders and those who want to be elected in equal measure that it is no longer about promises. They must commit to secure their lives at all cost. And they must make it in a manner that is implementable. And even these manifestos that we talk about, this agenda, they must be realistic and implementable so that Kenyans can have hope once again. Today, as you look at Kenyans walk out in the streets, people even collapse. Somebody, the last meal he had or she had was 2 days ago. The cost of unga is high. People cannot even afford 20 shillings for matatu because the fares have been hiked. People cannot do anything. They are struggling. We recognize that. And for us who are in the political class, whether elected or not elected, we recognize this. What we are saying is, as we move forward, we must look at issues and address them with a solution that is practical. We have said that the economic revolution that Azimio is proposing is an economic revolution that is implementable. When we look at the agriculture, livestock, environment, energy, but also we are saying, as we do that, In the meantime, how do we even support the people that are suffering through social infrastructure? We're talking about 6,000 shillings per family to the most vulnerable. We're talking about cushioning the young people who are unemployed through Kazi Mtaani. We're talking about the single mothers who today have no one to support them. But most importantly, under that in Inua Jamii, we're talking about how do we look at the cost of living? I mean, how do we specifically focus on the cost of living with easing the pressure on specifically fuel that we're talking about, unga, mobile data, and energy? Those issues will be unpacked as we go. Okay. I agree with you that it is an issue that requires strategic intervention. Both camps must come out to convince the public that this is how they're going to address them. Fortunately, for Azimio One Kenya, we have put an agenda that is going to address that. We will wait and see what our competitors are doing, but in the meantime, Kenyans must know that today we have a solution around the cost of living, what we are proposing, and particularly fuel and energy. So I ask Kenyans out there to interrogate, even as they interrogate as ordinary Kenyans, how practical is it and how implementable it is.
Okay, of course, a conversation that we must have. I want us to take a look at some feedback, then I take the final remarks from Dr. Pamela Odhiambo and Caleb Kositanyi. And of course, you can do this by tweeting us at Citizen TV Kenya, at Sam Gituku. The hashtag to use is Daybreak, and you'll be sure to read some of your views. And just to explain here, we're not just singling out unga, it's just a representative of the cost of living, because you also know that milk prices have also skyrocketed. Now it's 60 shillings per half a litre or 500 ml. Actually 60 for some brands, others could be more than that. And of course the cooking oil going all the way up. How much is it
2,000, 3 litres.
2,000
shillings. I think 5 litres, 2,000 shillings.
5 litres, 2,000
yes.
shillings, of
yes.
course. Let's take a look at LJ Sindani. Honorable Caleb Kositanyi is talking about subsidizing farm inputs to increase agricultural production. Let Kenyans know subsidies are not sustainable. We have seen it with the fuel subsidy that's soon coming to an end. Malela, you're saying, Fred Okango, one way to address cost of fuel is to review the taxes imposed. That's a simple answer to a question asked by myself. Crispinas Adams, the government should revive the oil refinery to lower cost of fuel by importing crude oil instead of refined petroleum products, suspend major infrastructural projects to use the funds to subsidize the food prices. Unfortunately, the infrastructure are financed by borrowed money. You can't use that for consumption, can you? I don't know. Frank Orinde, I'm disappointed that our elected leaders can't talk candidly about factors that affect fuel prices. The moment our economy is doing poorly and corruption is the order of the day, with the shilling being weaker against the dollar, then cost of fuel will go up locally. All right. Handi Nyaoro, politics of unga, shame. The political leadership in this country is terrible. Failure after failure. Kenyans want solutions and zero blame games. Anthony Khan, Ukraine-Russia war has great negative effects to Kenya's energy and farm input products like crude oil and fertilizer, respectively. It is expected the cost of manufacturing and production to go up and cause economic inflation in Kenya. Robert Kiberenge, you're saying that it is so sad that instead of politicians taking steps to address the unbearable cost of living, they're using it as a campaign tool, pointing fingers and blame game. Kenyans are hungry and bitter. Charlotte Rosie, restoring the economy will not be easy for whoever will be elected to be the president. Debts are increasing every now and then. Prices of commodities are skyrocketing. It won't be easy. Only God can rescue Kenya at the moment. And there's a gentleman here, Gumba Steve, who says that we've had so many manifestos, but none of them has come to reality. So Kositanyi and his counterparts must know that it's just a matter of seeking votes. Otherwise, it's all about sycophancy and regional politics that works in Kenya, nothing more. Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, what's your final remarks?
Thank you, Sam. I'm just appalled and listening to some of those so intelligent remarks from Kenyans, and I want to say kudos. You can see that Kenyans want practical solutions. And that's why I say our main agenda, all of us, regardless of who will take the next government, we must first look from within before we look from without. And I want to encourage us that I feel frustrated, and I think this one, Honorable Kositanyi should carry home. Your presidential candidate is still part of the government of Kenya. And when you are blaming, like mentioning even ODM has never been in government. That correction I must make before I go away. But I join Kenyans in saying that, yes, problems are here with us, but we must stand up and face them. And facing them means we have to take our leaders to account. This idea of people giving policies and manifestos and then failing to implement it, I want to encourage fellow Kenyans. Could we also examine how exactly are we also part of it? Because sometimes when these people take government, then you find that people forget about whatever the promises they made, and people start demanding for different things from them and not the services that we really need.
Okay.
Like in 2013, it's disappointing that the laptops that Ruto promised have never been seen. So I wish Kenyans well, but even as we move forward, I am appealing to the young people, please listen to serious issues and demand for services from your leaders, not handouts. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Pam. Caleb Kositanyi, your final word.
I think one thing that we need to accept as a country is we're in a hole, we're in a deep economic crisis, and we need to actually elect a leadership that will come and get us out of that hole. We need to limit our borrowing. If anything, stop borrowing and start focusing on how we are going to repay the debts that we are already in. When Pamela says that ODM is not in government, she should just look at the committees, parliamentary committees, some that are reserved for opposition and are now being chaired, and some that are reserved for government are being chaired by ODM, which is meant to be in the opposition. So ODM is fully in government since the handshake, and they cannot run away from the problems that we have experienced since the handshake came in. We need to focus more and direct all our focus on the revival of the economy. The constitution is not our problem. Our issue is reviving the economy and the issues of corruption. We need to focus on the issue of corruption, and let us stop this thing that those who are shouting about corruption loudest are trying to shout and say that the ones who are not corrupt. Most of those who are shouting about corruption loudest are the ones that have made serious money within this government, within the handshake period, and we are going to actually be going after the things that they have done within these periods. We have not forgotten about the KEMSA haste and all that. And the most important thing is the treasury should come clean. We have a shortage of dollars in this country. We have had industries shutting down because they cannot procure raw materials because they can't access dollars.
That was a statement. I don't know if it's from CBK or the National Treasury discounting that.
And that is a deep crisis because the Pwani oil has now slowed down operations. I'm even told that now they have started selling in dollars because that is what their prices are pegged on the dollar, and if you want to pay, they're asking you to pay with the matching of the dollar. So it's actually important that we're in a crisis and we need to get out. And we're in this crisis because we lost focus. We got off the track and started.
I hear you. Wedera Karanja is telling me that milk is not 60 shillings; it is 75 shillings. Well, I looked at the store that I looked at, 60 shillings for 500 ml, so a liter would be 120. We can engage on.
And they're buying from the farmer at 20-something shillings, which is very, very absurd.
How much is it for the farmers?
For the farmers, I think it's 28 shillings per liter.
28 shillings a liter. Well, we're in a sad situation. Of course, cooking oil is more than 400 shillings a liter, and it keeps rising. And
the price of salt has gone up.
These are essential commodities. Yeah, I checked out salt. Salt is 27 shillings per kilo. Yeah. The 500 grams is 15 shillings. I remember a time when I was younger, it was about 8 shillings. So you're right. That's our time here. Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, thank you so much. Caleb Kositanyi and Fred Okango for making time for us to have this conversation. We do this again tomorrow to take a look at the state of affairs in as far as the rest of 2022 is concerned. My name is Sam Gituku. Goodbye.